Good evening, everyone. Or afternoon, sorry, my bad. Good afternoon, everyone. Today, we're back with another sermon episode, whatever you want to call it. And today, we're going to be talking about friends, the Bible, and codependency. Now, I might not get to everything in this video, and we'll certainly make a part two if we need to. And it's going to be a bit of a shorter video today. There's not going to be too much to talk about here, but I'm going to kind of go over briefly some of the areas of concern. This is going to be a different format from the previous episode sermons that I've had, and because of that, I'm going to do the best I can to make sense of it. I have a lot here to talk about today, but at the same time, it's just a bunch of more questions format, not too much preaching. And this is something that even I kind of struggle with, and so it's sort of a gray area for me to be talking about. But I do want to get into it just so I can be able to get to kind of a deeper understanding and help some people, whoever may be needing help. So we're going to start with that. First thing I should say this. We're going to start with this question here. Should you have them? My response to this is, if you are responsible enough to have them. And this just means that you're not overly emotional. Now, when someone doesn't call you on the phone, or when someone doesn't give you a text, you're not screaming, you're not yelling at that person, or you're angry at God for it. Because I was. And I used to do the same thing, where I would have people call me, or not call me actually, and then freak out over it and blame God, blame whoever I wanted to. And that's just because it's a completely emotional, irrational response. And you have to be able to get used to that, because people are going to be like that. And it's very rare to find someone who doesn't do that. Again, someone that's seeking for a friendship, someone that's seeking for your attention, rather than the vast majority of people who really already have their small group of people, or their online sort of communities they talk to, and don't really want to be bothered with the excess, friends or people that kind of aren't a priority to them, right? And I want to really get into this, because this is going to get pretty deep and really emotional, but there's a lot of things I want to get to. So, when are friends necessary? Friends are not always necessary. You don't need to be talking to someone on the phone every single day. I certainly don't. I would get pretty exhausted if I did. And it's just not really mandatory to have. I mean, they're not your life support. They're not people that are going to be paying the bills, or they're going to be taking care of you. No, that's what God's job is to do. And, they're not, you don't have to be talking to anyone to be validated by them. How to make friends. Now, this is sort of an all-on-one answer, because I cannot tell you there is one specific way you have to make friends. You can make friends anywhere, honestly. God can reveal things in a way you don't even expect, in the most unlikely, uncertain circumstances, and you could just be able to talk with people, and just make connections out of nowhere with anyone. And so there's not one place to find them. I know. I even find people when I'm preaching the gospel to people. I usually find people who share certain similarities to me, and I just make friends with them. And that's the kind of mindset you have to have when you're actually on this walk with God, is that you are making friends with them. You are taking the time, in a sense, to actually get to know them, get in community with them, and actually wanting to be invested in a relationship with them. Because that's really what's important at the end of the day. So how often should you communicate with them? Maybe less than an hour a day. It's up to you. I mean, it shouldn't be every day you're doing it, but if you want to and it's fruitful for you, then yeah, keep doing it. I would just say make God first, and then friendship comes after. It's that simple. It's not too hard to understand now. And I'd actually argue that if you're not doing that, you're actually putting yourself at risk to falling away from God. Now, what kind of friends should you have? It should always be Christian friends. Now, I understand that there's some people that with atheist friends or with Muslim friends. Those are fine and all, but I really wouldn't consider them friends unless they're calling you, because a lot of times, just because you may have something in common with them doesn't mean they're necessarily a friend, at least in my experience. Now, I can't sit there and say that, it's one group of people that don't call me, one group of people that, are not leaving messages or are trying to be in contact, trying to be friends with me, because it's really everyone, and anyone can be like this, and that's the sad reality. Even Christians can be like that. Even people that share the same belief and faith as you can be the same way. So it's a hard issue. And yeah, you can find interest with anyone. Someone that has the same interests as you, someone that likes to talk about the same things as you, right? But you can also find inconsistency with everyone. So this is the problem. I think you kind of have to set realistic boundaries, that not everyone's going to be in those expectations, and then not assuming that everyone's going to be like that too. Everyone's different, so there will be some people out there that are willing to put the effort to have friends with you, and that they are not going to be like everyone else, and those people will come at the right time. You gotta have faith in that. Should you ever hang out with your friends? Now, this is an interesting one, because this is something that I haven't really experienced in quite a long time. The actual idea of hanging out with your friends. Well, actually, mine is that it's happened once. And this is with a church friend. So, I don't know if I explain it here. I kind of would have to look in here if I explained it. But church friends are kind of like, you're friends with them only because you go to the same church as them. You're not really close with them. Not saying you can't make close friends in church, but they're hard to find. But also this too, is that realization that friends just don't come out of nowhere, right? You got to actually dig in and spend time with them, get to know them, and see for yourself whether or not you can actually be friends, if you have an emotional connection with them, if you have physical interest, before we actually start making friends with them, basically. Never force a friendship. The worst thing you could do is to constantly harass, demand that person be with you, hang out with you. No, that's an anxious attachment style. Pretty much trying to beg that person to want to be friends with you. That's not a healthy relationship. That's not healthy in any relationship. And that's an overdependence on that person, a codependency when you start to do it. Forcing any friendship or relationship is a codependency issue, and you just have to kind of break it. You have to break out of that, And God's really the only thing that you should be codependent on, because He's really the thing that's sustaining your life. He's the sustainer of life, and He's sustaining your life, whether you realize it or not. So yeah. Do they come to you? I hope. But realistically, it's a lot of work. And not many people are looking to invest in friendships. I mean, this is the sad reality that we live in, that people are more concerned about bettering themselves as opposed to actually maintaining social communications and relationships with other people. Because that's just the society that we live in. It's just catered to be more independent. It's like, how can I better myself? How do I better my own life? How do I become the best that I can be? And it's becoming, and it's just how it is, it's just less and less about actually having other people in your life and more so becoming independent, this independent person, to where you just don't really feel like you need anyone else to have in your life. It's more so about me. And I'm here to challenge that line of thinking, to say that no, you do actually need other people to have in your life. You do need others, social influences in your life, and you do need connections with other people, because that's going to help you grow, to challenge your own way of thinking, and to help you see things from a new perspective. Right? So friends are not a bad thing. Friends are a good thing to have. And there's this sort of stigma out there that because you can't have intimate friendships nowadays with other men, that it's becoming this kind of thing where it's kind of being pushed aside, and a lot of those people who think that way are now being called gay, are now being called uh, homosexual. And this kind of idea that we don't see this anymore because it's being stigmatized, that if you think this way, if you like thinking this way, then all of a sudden you're a homosexual, you're gay. And that's just unfortunate. That's not good. Because this is making people feel bad about their sexual desires, and then also perverting those desires to make it more of a sexual thing when it doesn't need to be. And it's caused a lot of confusion, a lot of chaos. It's caused a lot of negative thinking. And it's just caused so much harmful behavior in a lot of people, inflicting on people now. And it's unfortunate. It's a terrible, ungodly thing to do. Now, you need to look for them and to seek after them. Otherwise, they will not want to talk to you. What do I mean by this? It's very simple. If you're not going to make the effort, people are not going to come to you. You have to do the digging. You have to get yourself in social environments, whether that be the park or school, anywhere, because nothing's going to come to you for free. Now, obviously, there's faith in God. Now, don't get me wrong, you do have to have a faith in God in order for Him to bring those friends to you, and that's very important. So, faith in God obviously is, you're not going to get anything out of it if you're not putting your faith in God, because He's the one that's going to bring those people to you at the right time. And of course, you may not like that. You may not like the fact that He may bring it to you in a specific way that you're not accustomed to, but He'll show it to you. And even now, I'd be lying if I said that I didn't have faith in God, because my faith in God is the only thing that's helping me to trust that He's actually going to bring those right people to me. Because when you start to do things on your own, you're kind of depending on yourself and not so more the power of God to do it for you, and for Him to obviously bring those right people to you at the right time. And I would kind of have to say that it's a little bit of both. You do have to kind of seek the friends out on your own, but also putting yourself in a position so God can bless you in that area and give you those people that He wants to give you. And they might not be all the people that you want. They might not even lead up to the expectations that you want them to be. And that's really just the sad reality, is that you may feel like you found someone, but then they're kind of putting you on the side. So that happens a lot. And that's kind of happen. It's going to be very common that happens, because it happens to everyone. And it's going to keep happening because, that's how people are. And yeah, even when you get used to it, there's still going to be just kind of rejection that you kind of have to face, even with wanting to have certain friends, and even friends that you may have wanted that will still kind of reject you and kind of abandon you out of nowhere, because for some reason they may have found someone else, or moved on, or struggling with different things and going through their own problems. So I don't know. It's a really challenging thing to deal with. You may not have any friends the moment you accept Jesus Christ. And this might just be a period of isolation, separated from people, to help you in these areas to growing in your faith. Being the man or woman God wants you to be. Going to your purpose. And then friends will come. So God's replacing the friends that you had before and giving you new ones. And I can't tell you the amount of times that God's had to replace the amount of people in my life for just one reason or another. I don't know. Because friends can just be for one season. You may just have friends for that one particular season and then you move on, right? And then you have to move on to the next friends. And then you move on, you have to get a new set of friends. It's just a sad reality, the sad truth that we live in, that this is kind of how it is, but also God wants to try to build you in that area. So he may be removing people because they already serve their purpose. And whatever purpose that may be, I don't know, that's for you and God to discuss, whatever those things may be, because you don't know yet. You haven't challenged that line of thinking. And you may not realize that kind of commitment that person was at the time. It's just, I don't know, it's just how people are. And for me to explain another person's mind would just be kind of bigoted for me to do, because I don't know everyone's mind. I don't know another person's mind by my own. And people, will think what they want. They will kind of have their own way of thinking, and you're just going to have to accept that. How do you know they are my friend? This is a question I struggle with a lot. You don't know. You don't know, but I will give you hints as to how you should know. Now, number one, friends that you talk with in person versus people that you talk with on the phone. And this is a big one, because just because you see someone in person doesn't automatically make them your friend. I mean, look, you could sit there and say that you want to be friends, you're friends with this person, you want to be friends with this person because you're having good conversations with them in person. That doesn't always equal them being your friends. And it's this whole thing about, people trying to identify what a friend is, because society's just made it so, I don't know, they've completely just torn and tainted the definition of friendship now. There was like, oh no, you gotta get a drink with someone in order to be friends with them. Oh no, you gotta be committing a murder or committing an act of hatred or an act of suffering, right? You gotta be doing these illegal acts to be considered friends with someone. And we sort of lost the concept, and there's the other aspect of it too, which is the overstimulation of friendships, which is kind of like you're always connected with them, you're always in the same household as them, you're always hanging out with them. Well, that's not a friend either, that's more of a roommate or a partner. And so my definition of a friend is just someone you talk with on occasion. You're occasionally able to talk to, and you hang out every once in a while. And that's my definition of friendship, because really, just because you have someone's phone number doesn't mean you're friends with them. It also doesn't mean that you're going to be close with that person either. And just because you have a conversation with them maybe once a week, or not even once a week, but maybe once a year or once a month, doesn't make them your friends either. So it's that consistent connection, just like how you have a relationship with Jesus. It's that consistent connection with someone and making investment of time for that person. So that's obviously very important. So friends to talk with, church friends, are hard to find. Friends you hang out with are even harder to find. You may have to go through a wilderness phase of testing and trial and tribulation before you can meet the right people that God has for you. So it's just waiting for Him. It's just waiting for God's plan to really take hold. And here's the other thing too. People who are unbelievers will most likely disrespect you for your beliefs. And I'm going to give testimony for my certain situation, my certain circumstances, because this is a very real phenomenon where you may have friends, but they're unbelievers. They may be unbelievers. And you try to connect with them, just try to talk with them about your faith, to challenge their line of thinking. In a sense, maybe you're debating them, like I usually do. You're going to get disrespected by them. You're going to get You're going to get mocked. You're going to get ridiculed for it because this is just how people are. Especially when you're trying to force your religious beliefs onto them. Now, there's a healthy way of doing this, and I believe that my way of doing this is pretty healthy. But for someone, it may not be healthy. And you may not have to settle for boundaries if you do not know what you're talking about. Because if you don't know what you're talking about in a certain area, you don't have really a right to be talking about it. In the same way that if you're not accustomed with God and you don't have a really, really good foundation for your faith, and you're not really studying the Gospels, then yeah, it's going to be very hard to challenge someone else's line of thinking. Sorry. Now I'm going to skip some parts of this. Even close friends are people who you thought were close friends, or people you wanted to be close friends with, can turn around and you can be disconnected with them. Stop texting or stop calling you. And this is the thing, though, they were never your friends to begin with. If they're doing this and they're just doing it out of nowhere, they were never really your friends. They were never committed to you. I think that's the important thing to understand, is that people that you wanted to connect with are not going to connect with you out of nowhere. And you're just going to have dead communication with them. You're going to have dead phone numbers. And they're going to be useless. They are useless because they not serving you a purpose by, just not responding to your phone calls, not responding to your text message. So they are kind of just in the way of your own faith with God. And depending on that person, even when they're not showing up, I mean, you can only call someone a few number of times before you get the idea that this person's not really committed to me. And that's the thing. If you're not calling someone, but you're expecting the other person to call you, that's not always a healthy way of thinking. No, it's more so you having an interchange back and forth. So, for example, if someone's calling you and you're calling that person back, that's a healthy relationship. That's a healthy friendship. But if you're someone that's just calling them and they're not calling you back, that's kind of more of an unhealthy friendship, or a very loose connection with that friend, and they're not really committed. But if someone doesn't respond at all to your calls or your texts, then you just leave them. They just abandon you, and that's just something that you and God are gonna have to handle with God. And He's going to have to tell you whether you should be with that person or not. And if they're just going through something, so there's also that as well. If you just have to take a break from that person. Because sometimes God's just maturing you to be that person, that man or God, so He could put that person back into your life. And that may be the case. So you also have to get into that mindset too, where it may not be that person completely abandoned you, but you just have to be separated from that person for a season or for however long. But there will also be dead relationships too. You kind of have to work that out with God, see what He thinks. And yeah, you may have to get used to getting rejected, because there's this kind of notion where you're having a codependency in that person and validates you, to give you your feelings, to give you peace, give you happiness. And so you may have to go through that feelings again and again to kind of not feel it that way anymore, to not feel those negative emotions anymore. But to know that it doesn't matter if someone calls you or not. It doesn't matter if someone answers your phone call anymore, but that it doesn't matter. It's that God's going to be with you. Even when you do get used to it, it's still going to happen, because people are people, and you can't change that. You can only change your emotions. You cannot change really anything about that person. You can only change yourself and your response to that. And I wrote this here, and I believe it to a certain extent, so I want to read it. again, we'll get to as much as we can here. I'm gonna make this short. Most people with the biggest egos are willing to respond to you because they themselves have been rejected by many and are willing to abuse and manipulate people to make themselves feel good, to mock, criticize, and belittle you, and however the way they want. They are the most willing to want to seek after friendship because a lot of them are loners themselves. Now, some of this is true, some of it's not. And the extent of this is that, yeah, people that with big egos are obviously going to be rejected by other people because they don't want to be, they don't want to be with other people, right? They're not going to want to be around other people, or they themselves are not going to attract people in their lives because they themselves are disconnected with everyone else, and no one's going to want to be with them. The other aspect of this, too, is understanding that there are people out there that are going through the same exact struggles to you that are actually looking for friendships, and that they are trying to look for friends, and you have to find them. Okay, and God can bring those people to you, but you have to show him that you're faithful to him. You got to show him that you want those friendships, that you want him, that you want to be with him more than anyone else, and that you're going to serve him too. And that's will come with time. It's not something that comes immediate, believe me. If that came immediate, then I probably wouldn't be making this video. But the reality is that they take time to make, that God has to take time to build you, so you could be the problem. You going back to your sin, going back to lust, going back to porn addiction, going back to drinking, smoking weed, or drinking alcohol, or just having idolatry, idolizing that person, putting them on a pedestal. Those are problems that God has to take. He has to take down. He has to demolish those walls, those lines of thinking, so that he can again put you in a place, or put you where he needs you to put you. Put you in the places that you are called to be in, that he wants to put you in. And he will give you those certain people, but you have to be willing to be committed to him. And so that's really it. Now I wanted to say this: encountering people, street preaching, or preaching the gospel to people. This is an area where I could talk a lot about, and I did say I was going to make a video about street preaching, but not so much about the experiences of street preaching, but more so how to street preach. Now, if you want to make friends street preaching, that's perfectly fine, but understand this: you're not just going to find, you can't just sit there, I want to be friends with this person because I love them, or you can't just be friends with this person because you lust after them, because you lusting after that person, the way they look, the way that they talk, the way they act, okay? You can't be so committed to that person just for a few seconds. You've only met them a few seconds and you want to be committed to them. That's not how friendships work. You don't just preach the gospel to someone and then in a few seconds later you're saying you want to be friends with them. You don't do it like that. It's that you wait for God to bring that person back to you. And if that's something that if God wants you to be with that person, he'll put that person into your life again, so he can put those opportunities in front of you. But that's not going to be something that you're not going to be instantly connected to that person the second you meet them. The same way you're not going to instantly be friends with them. You're not going to instantly be friends with them just the second you meet them. No, it's going to take time. You got to build that connection with that person, and then it will come to you. And even then, there's no guarantee that you'll be friends with them. But there's some sort of hope that if you see the person enough, that person will be able to be recognized to you and be comfortable talking with you, outside or even outside, even outside of the. Be able to talk with you outside of that area, outside of public spaces. And yeah, there's some people that will get people's phone numbers, the second that they meet them, and they'll try to do that. And I've there's some people that say that, I just get their phone numbers just to be in contact with them, just to communicate with them. Okay, I think there's a difference between that. If you're looking to be friends with someone through that, that's fine. That's perfectly how you want to do it. But it's also not likely that that person is going to want to stay connected to you. I think the issue with that is, first of all, you're getting everyone's phone numbers. And I think people are going to be kind of skeptical when you do that, in the sense that you are pretty much begging someone to be friends with you or to get in contact with them. Not everyone's going to be receptive to that, first of all. The second is that you should not expect them to be your friends overnight. Yeah, maybe if they're hesitant, maybe they're willing to give you numbers, then sure. But I don't know if that's really healthy, because again, that's kind of putting that codependency on a man or a woman to kind of be in contact with you. So no, I don't think that's a healthy way to do it. But if you want to kind of make friends with, if you can make friends with them, that's good. It's better to wait for that person to come into your life again than to just assume that person's friends or you want to be in contact with them just to kind of be connected to them. And they don't just be some that just don't answer the phone. I mean, that's just the truth, that people would just not be willing to answer the phone if you call them, and you know, it's just how it works. And yeah, so no guarantee. God brings them to you at the right time. You don't need to have to ask people to be friends with you. God would just bring them to you. You would just ask. You just ask Him, and He'll bring them to you. So stop asking people if they want to be friends with you. Stop asking people to be friends with you. Ask God instead. Ask Him what He thinks about that about it. Okay. Rejection comes in many forms and many times. Don't let rejection sink in and make you feel like nobody cares for you. Come to Jesus. You know what? God cares for you. Maybe someone out there is going through the same struggle, just like I was saying before, and are going through the same hardships you're going through, and they're looking for a man or a woman like you to be with, so you can be able to relate with them and help them out with their situation, and to love them the way that they want to be loved. And maybe you're the only person that can help them in that aspect. And we would treat them the way that they haven't been treated like someone before. That's just how life works. We're made to connect with people, but not with everyone. Now stop having to have everyone to be in your life. Stop forcing people to be in your life when you know that it doesn't matter if that person's in your life or not. But if it's the right person, they will come to you and it will be at the right time, and you will just know. God will give you that feeling that it's the right time to do it. Okay? But also be willing to develop into the man or woman that person needs you to be, that God wants you to be for that person. And that'll take time. That'll take a lot of forgiveness. That'll take a lot of endurance, a lot of faithfulness, a lot of suffering that goes involved in that. It's not an easy or fun process, believe me. You think I enjoy being harassed by certain people? You know, being ridiculed or mocked, saying that I'm not intelligent, saying that I don't know nothing. I mean, this is sort of the line of thinking that, again, this is gonna be the thing that's gonna help develop you to be the right person that God needs you to be, and then also to trust in Him more. Okay. So building that faith, building that trust, dependency on God as well. Don't depending on other people, because they're going to fail you, and they might even do the complete opposite. They might just completely destroy you, or trash your line of thinking, or trash your beliefs, or trash your kindness. You're being taken advantage of, because you a lot of times your kindness can just be taken advantage of by other people, and it's not necessarily your fault, but it's their heart issue that's in line, because people are always not grateful for the things they have, and they're always seeking after something else. And I want to get to a Proverbs. I know I'm not going to have time for this, but this is very important. We're going to get into more scriptures at a later time. But hurt and pain builds your resilience to build your faith. or helps build your resilience to improve your faith in God. Now, let's see what I have time for. I'm going to go to Proverbs very quickly. I might not even have time. But Proverbs 23:6, which is a really important verse because this is something I was saying when I was going through envy. And God delivered me from being envious. And I struggled with enviness for maybe about a few years now, honestly speaking. I'm just not being grateful. But Proverbs 23:6, which is what God used to deliver me from that and helping me to understand, I was like, even a lot of resentment and a lot of built-up enviness. So, this is what the Bible says. It says, "Eat not with an envious man, and desire not his meats, because like a soothsayer and divinator, he thinketh that which he knoweth not. Eat and drink, he will say to thee, and his mind is not with thee." Think about this very specifically on that last verse. His mind is not with you. Again, if you're with someone that's envious, and that person invites you to come out with it, hang out with them, and eat with them, you're not going to want to be around that person because they're not thinking about you. They're thinking about what they don't have. They're thinking about the things that they want, right? The things that they're lusting after, the lust of the eyes, lust of the flesh, and the pride of life, just like it says in 1 John 2:16. And he's not going to be worried about you. He's not going to be focused on you because he's thinking about the things he doesn't have. He's thinking about the things he wants to have, and he's not grateful for the small things that he has already. So how could he possibly be grateful for you? How could he be grateful for you being in your life when he's thinking about the things he wants to have, the things he's lusting after? So don't be that envious man. Be a man that's grateful. Okay, if you don't have someone in your life, fine. Then good. But be grateful if someone does call you, if someone's making that effort to come and talk with you, even if it may not be someone that you necessarily agree with or necessarily like. At least that person's willing to put the time to invest in you. It's those small connections, even with family members. Even if you may not get along with your mom or your dad or sisters, brothers, whoever it may be, even if they're the ones that are trying to come and talk with you, at least be grateful for that. And if you be a friend that you're not really close with, you don't really hang out with, you're not close to, at least be grateful for that, so God can bless you. He will bless you when you start being grateful. And even if you don't have anything, right? It's your faith in God. At least you have God that cares for you. And God ultimately is going to be there for you to help and provide you. And just know this, the pain will not last forever. Just keep going. The pain will end. The darkness will flee, will fade away. Better days will come. You will not need to be in the suppression state forever. Read the Word of God to help you in life. Have a relationship with Jesus Christ. When you get lonely, draw close to God. Trust that there is a light at the end of this. And that God's plan, although challenging, will be worth it one day. I'm going to end it on that. There's a lot more scriptures here, a lot more that I wanted to talk about, but I'm going to make this the second part. Hopefully you all enjoyed this. Much shorter, but I kind of have to keep it short for the sake of just the time length. And yeah. Appreciate you guys for watching the video. Hopefully this helps you just about your faith in God a little bit more. And just trusting that when you keep enduring, God will give you those people at the right time. Even if it may be sooner than later, or later than you expect, but He will provide. They may not always end up the way you want them to be. Or they might not all be the way that you want them to be, but there will be some that will come into your life and it will truly desire to be with you, desire to have a connection with you. However way He wants it to be. Alright, appreciate you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you all in the next video.